Wow, folks, the Tuckster has done it this time. You would not believe how much I wanted to get on and talk about this yesterday. But I frankly, I did not have the time, and I had not finished the interview yet till, I guess it was yesterday evening, or no, maybe it was this morning. You know, the days just sort of blend together. There's so much happening so fast. I will say plainly that what is today, Thursday? So it was Tuesday night. Tuesday night was a watershed moment for the American right. Tucker, the sentinel of American conservatism, the perhaps most trusted amongst, the average Americans who consider themselves, right of center, pretty much the most universally trusted figure. He came out with a very simple message. There's a lot that's been said. Almost all of it said by Zionists about what Tucker did on Tuesday. But I will tell you, in plain English, what he did was say it's okay to question Israel. It's that simple. He staked his credibility on it. He has alienated the entirety of the Zionist media complex, which, by the way, comprises much, I would say probably a majority of right wing, I can't even speak today. That's how much of a political earthquake Tucker triggered. He gave me tremors. Although, unlike the Zionists, I am not literally shaking in a fit of rage. I am, frankly, well, I wouldn't say elated. There's really nothing in politics that could make me feel elated these days. But I am pleased with how quickly American politics on the right are evolving. And, it's almost shocking. I mean, I checked in for like 5 minutes because I happened to, scroll past a talk radio station today, and I just heard a little bit of, what the Democrats are talking about, and it's like, wow. Nothing's changed for them. There's, nothing new under the sun. They're just talking about abortion still. It's like, but on the right, things are changing. People are evolving, and I think it's for the better, almost universally. I mean, perhaps not every change is for the better. I'm not one of these people who thinks that change is good for change's sake. I'm very much in my temperament. I'm very much a lowercase c conservative. I don't like anything to change in life, but the things that are changing with the American right mostly are things that were awful, and they're becoming less awful, if not even outright good. And so Tucker, he carried out an act of defiance. He acknowledged the existence of Palestinian Christians, which is something that is verboten. It is unspeakable. These people are literally untouchables. There is no such thing as a Palestinian Christian, we are told. There's no such thing really as an Arab Christian, except for when it's convenient, which is sometimes. Sometimes, in certain situations, it can be convenient to acknowledge Arab Christians. Not when it came to the Syrian civil war. You couldn't acknowledge them then, because our side, Al-Qaeda, was, very much on the opposite side of that conflict from the Christians. The Christians were very much not on Al-Qaeda's side, so we didn't acknowledge them in that case. We don't acknowledge them when it comes to Gaza, because every time a church explodes, that would be something that would be difficult for American Christian leaders to defend. It's very difficult for them on religious grounds, because we're told in America, if you go to any church pretty much, you would be told it is a imperative. It says right in the Bible, we must bow down to Israel. Israel is our real kings, at least on earth. Sure, we serve Jesus, blah blah blah, but as long as we're on earth, we serve Israel. And it's easy enough to make that case when you have Jews in Israel blowing up mosques, because typically Americans who are of any sort of religious sort, they're not going to be big fans of the Muzzies. And so if they see Israelis fighting against Muslims, American Christians, they would just instinctively think, okay, well, this is a good holy war, But the situation becomes much more complicated when their great friends, their greatest ally, the Israelis, are blowing up Christian churches and killing Christians who are under a military occupation, who have no political rights under Israeli law. When they are evicting Christians from their homes, kicking them out, forcing them out of the country, leaving them destitute, this is something that becomes impossible for the Zionists to defend. It's just so much more convenient if all the people who are being treated that way are Muslims, because it's much easier to dehumanize those people. And so, really, in none of the criticism that I've seen of Tucker, I have not seen anyone address this. It was actually shocking even to me, the extent to which the Zionists obfuscated and refused to recognize this Lutheran priest, the guy who's wearing a white collar. Okay, he's a Protestant evangelical. The extent to which Zionists deny his very existence. We always roll our eyes at this, this ridiculous phrase that they always repeat about, oh, do you recognize Israel's right to exist? That's one of their favorite phrases. It must test very well with the focus groups. But these people literally deny that this Lutheran evangelical Protestant priest or pastor, I think they're called priests in the Lutheran Church, that he exists, or that any of these people exist. The official, I didn't realize this until recently, the official Israeli government position is that there are no Christians in the Palestinian territories. The official position is that Hamas killed them all. And that anyone who claims to be a Christian, who stands against Israel, is a secret Muslim who is posing as a Christian. These are Hamas like psyops, we're told, and that the only real Christians are the ones who live on the Israeli side of the wall. And so, yes, that would mean that in East Jerusalem, where there are a lot of Christian churches, though not as many as there used to be, and in Bethlehem, the birthplace of Jesus Christ, there are no real Christians. Those are fake Christians. That's not a real church, apparently, in Bethlehem. That's what we're told. And this priest that Tucker interviewed was in Bethlehem. You would think, hey, priests, Christians in Jesus' hometown, you would think they'd be some kind of an authority on something. I mean, I would think if anybody knows their Jesus, you'd think you'd find a good chance, or you'd have a good chance of finding someone who's pretty well versed in the gospel of Jesus Christ if you go to his hometown. I don't know. But according to many Jewish American conservative pundits on Twitter, well, actually, not just American. I was seeing at least one Australian guy, Avi Yemeni, also with crazy conspiracies about how Tucker's no longer America first because he turned on Israel. You have an Australian saying that Tucker, an American, is unpatriotic for refusing to defend to his last breath a third country, Israel. I mean, really, I think that this conflict has melted the brains of Zionist pundits. Because for most of my life, I didn't care much about the conflict going over there, no matter how much it was demanded, by the Zionist movement. That I do care. For the most part, I didn't care. But generally speaking, of course, I would have thought that the Israelis, would have been, the quote-unquote good guys if you had to pick a side, because they were the ones who supposedly, were the most like us and had the, most similar society. They were the ones with, science and reason, and, democracy. And that was sort of the persona that they, I feel, tried to perpetuate. But they're not doing that now. It's like full mask off. They don't care. They're just saying, no, you must love Israel no matter what. You may never criticize Israel. And so that's where we're at. The Tuckster crossed that line in the most mild way possible, in what should be the least controversial. Well, I shouldn't say that. It just flat out should not be controversial to have an interview where you just talk to someone and you ask them questions about an ongoing conflict and how it's affecting a minority within a population that doesn't get talked about very much. So much so that the Israeli government denies their very existence. The Zionists keep telling us that Tucker interviewed the wrong kind of Christian, that he should have interviewed a Christian pastor who supports Israel to find out what the real Christian position is on Israel. It's like, well, isn't that a little boring? Because every pastor you see on TV loves to tell you about how much they love Israel. But interestingly enough, those pastors don't live in Gaza or the West Bank. So Tucker said, you know what, why don't I talk to someone who doesn't get a lot of attention from the Western press, who has a different perspective, and let's hear them out. I mean, that's what you should be striving to do, but instead of uncovering new information, trying to expose your audience to new perspectives, Tucker's job, we're told by the Zionists, as a journalist, is to conduct interviews in order to reinforce the existing narrative and paradigm. Tucker should be interviewing evangelical Christian pastors on why we must support Israel. That apparently is the correct thing to do. That's what Tucker would do if he really wanted to understand the situation. So I will reiterate, the Candace Owens situation is interesting and relevant, not because of it's e-drama. You've got Lil Candace getting into a spat with Benji Shapiro. It's like, no, this is a schism forming on the American right, between people who are willing to call out the American right's longtime ally Israel when they do things wrong, and the part of the American right which exists solely to run interference for Israel and defend them at all costs. The latter of which are shills whose opinions should frankly just not be taken seriously. They've exposed themselves to much of their audiences as people who are not honest brokers, who are not just giving you their straight, unvarnished opinion. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that you have to criticize Israel in order to be, what's the right term? An honest person. I do think that that it is possible that someone holds the honest opinion that Israel's not doing anything wrong here and that everything Israel's doing is justified. I think someone is capable of holding that position. But it's the people who are shouting down all of those who don't share that position, who rather than debating with those who are taking issue with Israel's actions, instead are saying that, pulling the race card and all this crap, acting like whiny left-wing bitch boys, Those are the folks, the Ben Shapiros of the world. Those are the ones who I think are harming their credibility. I think if these people, really want to defend their position, that's fine. In fact, I'd be very interested in hearing that. I would love to hear, let's say, someone like Tucker. Although Tucker's far from a critic of Israel. See, this is the problem. It's not like he's an anti-Israel guy. I mean, you want to take an anti-Israel person who's intelligent, would be someone like Max Blumenthal, who's not of the right, of course. He's a left-wing guy, but or a Norman Finkelstein. Those are kind of like people who are professional anti-Zionists, both of which are Jews, by the way. Because oftentimes, as you might expect, the people who are the most passionate one way or the other about Israel tend to be Jews, because it is kind of it is a Jewish project. So it is the Jewish state, and so Jews tend to have the most vigorous opinions one way or the other, and tend to be the most informed about them. It is Christians who, even if they might even be very passionate, let's say like many of our evangelical friends and family, they might be very passionate in their support of Israel. But they usually don't know very much about the situation. I don't think a conversation between, let's say, Glenn Beck and Max Blumenthal would be very productive. I think that it probably wouldn't be very calm. But let's say something that would be even more hectic, a debate between Max Blumenthal and Ben Shapiro, opposite sides of the spectrum, but similar-ish sorts of, I don't want to say personalities, but they both have that thing about them. Not that Ben Shapiro would ever do it. I don't think Ben Shapiro would ever debate, as we've seen. I mean, just because the years go by, and Ben Shapiro, who's supposed to be this great debater, I've never seen him in a debate. I mean, people used to say that about him, when he was doing his college tour stuff, back in the old days, years and years ago. And I didn't take it super seriously, because it's like, oh yeah, he goes around, he gets these college kids, to say dumb things. That's his shtick. So I'm not going to say he's a bad debater just because he doesn't do that. Maybe he'll do it later. But it's been so many years. Like, he's had all these opportunities. He could have debated lots of people, lots of interesting people. He could have debated if he wanted to. He doesn't, because I don't think that he would be very skilled at arguing against informed people who disagree with him on substantive issues. But anyway, Tucker, even more so than Candace Owens, is opening the floodgate. Candace, what she represented was a crack in the dam, and Tucker just blew the thing wide open. For the younger generation, at the very least, because older folks really, they're not on X so much. Like all my grandparents used to like Tucker a lot when he was on Fox, but I doubt that they've seen or heard hardly anything from him, since he had to move to Twitter full time. So anyway, with that said, I want to thank Tucker for his service. Thank you, sir. And I will see you folks back here in the next one.